Welcome back to the deep dive. So for this exploration, we've got a whole stack of sources in front of us, and they all detail this pretty significant governmental proposal. It's designed to go after a very specific and honestly a pretty outrageous financial drain on everyday drivers. And we're not talking about gas prices here. We're diving into organized crime and how it hits your budget directly. Our mission is pretty simple. We're going to pull apart this plan and really try to get a handle on the sheer scale of the problem it's trying to fix.
Yeah, and let's just put the stakes on the table right away. Because the money involved here, it's staggering. It impacts every single person with a car insurance policy.
Yeah.
Before we even get into the how, the sources all point to one core number. These insurance fraud scams are adding up to $300 to the average driver's annual bill.
$300. That's basically a hidden tax, isn't it?
It is a tax you pay every year to cover losses from, these criminal groups.
And that number, that $300, that's the hook. It makes this whole thing really tangible for everyone listening. It's why our sources frame this whole response from Governor Kathy Hochul, which is coming during the State of the State, as a major affordability initiative.
Oh, absolutely. It's being positioned very intentionally as a cost of living fix.
Yeah.
And the language they're using, it really drives that home. The governor was quoted saying car insurance rates are just too damn high.
I saw that, yeah.
Especially during a time when the cost of living is skyrocketing.
Yeah.
So by connecting fraud to your wallet, it becomes a consumer protection issue, not just a crime issue.
Okay, so if the government is saying rates are too damn high and we can pinpoint $300 of that cost directly to fraud, we need to define the crime. What's the actual mechanism here?
Well, the primary engine, according to all the reports, is this highly organized scheme. It's all built around staged car crashes and then, of course, the fraudulent claims that follow. And this isn't just one person trying to pull a fast one. This is a sophisticated, high-volume criminal operation.
So now we get to the scale. How bad is this problem in New York compared to everywhere else?
The data is pretty startling. New York currently has the second highest number of staged auto accidents in the entire country.
The second highest, wow.
Yeah, number two. That ranking alone tells you why this is such a priority. It basically puts a giant spotlight on the state as a prime target for these fraud rings.
Okay, that context is huge. But let's drill down into the raw numbers from last year, from 2023. What are we actually talking about in terms of volume?
The volume is just immense. So in 2023, there were 1,629 staged crashes that were reported.
1,700.
Yes. Think about that. That's nearly 5 deliberate, planned crashes every single day of the year.
And that's just the crash itself. The fraud, I assume, gets much bigger with the insurance claims.
Precisely. And that brings us to the really big number, the one that defines the scope of this whole problem. Auto insurance carriers reported a record high 38,270 suspected cases of motor vehicle fraud.
38,000 suspected cases.
Here.
1 year.
Just last year.
So if you connect that huge number, the 38,000 cases, back to our wallets, you can suddenly see how that $300 financial hit we started with, how it happens.
That is the direct link. The scale of the fraud is directly proportional to the pain felt by the honest driver. When you have that many suspected cases, the costs to investigate them, to process them, to fight them, it doesn't just vanish. It gets spread out across every good policyholder's bill.
So with almost 5 fake crashes a day and that kind of volume, a single police unit isn't going to cut it. This needs something much bigger.
Not a chance. It requires a coordinated state offensive.
Yeah.
The problem isn't just criminal, it's financial, it's regulatory. You have to attack it from all those angles at once.
Which brings us to the how. What's the actual framework for this new crackdown?
So the plan we're seeing in the sources is this multi-agency approach. It's designed to pool all this different expertise. It's basically an admission that different parts of the fraud machine are vulnerable to different government powers.
So who's involved? Which agencies are we talking about?
Well, you've got the state police, which is the obvious one, right? They handle the criminal investigation, the arrests.
Right.
But then, and this is crucial, it also brings in the Department of Financial Services, the DFS. They're vital because they can track the money. Then you have the DMV, the Department of Motor Vehicles, who are key for spotting fake registrations. And finally, the Division of Criminal Justice Services, the DCJS, to make sure the prosecutions actually stick.
That's a powerful team. But, getting big state agencies to work together, that can be the real challenge. Do the sources say how they plan to make that happen?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Well, the material emphasizes that this will be structured through formal joint task forces. The goal, the primary objective, is to break up the organized fraud rings. So it's not about just responding to one-off crimes. It's about going in and actually dismantling the entire infrastructure.
Dismantling the infrastructure. I like that phrasing. It implies finding the weak points.
Exactly. And the plan stresses that this coordination isn't just for the investigation. It's to make sure investigators partner directly with prosecutors across the state. The whole point is to get convictions, to make sure that when a ring is identified, the case is strong enough to actually punish them and, get them out of the system for good.
Okay, so if the ring is the target, who are the bad actors inside that ring they're going after? The sources seem to break it down into three specific groups.
Right, it's a system, and a system needs different players to work. You've got the people on the street, the professional enablers, and then the people exploiting loopholes.
Let's start with the most obvious one.
That's target one. The drivers who are actually staging the crashes. They're the ones causing the collision, often with an innocent driver, to get the whole process started.
But a fender bender doesn't usually justify a huge payout. The real money has to come from the injury claims, which is where target two comes in. This seems like the linchpin.
This is absolutely the linchpin. Target two, fake medical providers. The plan is specifically going after the clinics and doctors who sign off on fraudulent injury claims. And the reason this is so critical, especially in New York, is because we have a no-fault insurance system.
Okay, explain that. Why does no fault create this kind of vulnerability?
Well, the no-fault system means insurance companies have to pay for injuries up to a certain limit, no matter who caused the crash. It's designed to get people medical care quickly. But for criminals, it means they don't have to prove who was at fault to get access to the money. All they need is a crash and a crooked doctor willing to rubber stamp a bunch of fake treatments.
Ah, so they can bill for months of physical therapy that never happened.
Exactly. Or acupuncture, chiropractic care, you name it. Shutting down those fake clinics is like cutting off the oxygen supply to the entire fraud ring. Without the inflated medical bills, the staged crash itself isn't very profitable.
That explains why the Department of Financial Services is so involved. They're going after the billing records, not just the crash reports.
That's the key. The DFS follows the money, and the DCJS is there to prosecute the professionals who are enabling it all.
Okay, so let's get to the third group, which is a really interesting example of how these rings work. Target 3 is out-of-state registration scams.
Right, this is a more sophisticated play, but it directly hurts honest New York drivers. This targets drivers who live and drive in New York, but illegally register their cars in, say, Pennsylvania or another state with lower insurance requirements.
And why does that make my insurance go up here in New York?
Well, it's a double whammy. First, that driver is dodging their fair share of the costs in New York's high-risk pool. But more importantly, when their illegally registered car gets into an accident in New York, it forces New York's insurance system to cover costs it shouldn't have to. It's a direct attempt to shift the financial burden onto New Yorkers. So cracking down on this closes a huge loophole that criminals use to displace costs.
So it's a comprehensive plan. You hit the crash itself, you hit the doctors who make it profitable, and you hit the registration schemes that hide the risk. It's an attack on the whole ecosystem.
That's the idea. And the source notes that while we have this core framework, we're expecting the governor to lay out more of the specific financial details and timelines during the State of the State speech.
So to sort of wrap this all up, the main takeaway from our deep dive is this. We have a clear official acknowledgement from the government. They're saying these highly organized fraud rings are directly costing you, the average driver, about $300 a year. And this huge multi-agency response police, financial regulators, the DMV, it signals they see this as a major crisis of consumer affordability, not just a bunch of random crimes.
That's it, exactly. The scale of the response matches the scale of the problem. You're talking nearly 40,000 suspected cases a year. But the solution is focused. We know the key is the fake medical provider who signs off on the phony claims. So here's the final thought for you to chew on. If this coordinated effort can actually succeed, if it can cut off those professional enablers and shut down the registration loopholes, which are really the most vulnerable parts of the whole system, how quickly could that $300 hit on your annual bill actually start to drop?
That's a great question.
The effectiveness of this crackdown will be directly measurable in the wallets of millions of people.
And that economic relief is the ultimate test of success, isn't it? Something to keep in mind as we wait for the full details. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the real costs of organized auto insurance fraud.